Hello, everybody at the Elephant and Castle community. It is Nick from Retribe, joining me today by Manvir Dhinse, who is a meditation coach. And I'm so going to dive into this one with you, Manvir, because meditation is a huge, huge part of my life. I've just downloaded the Sam Harris Waking Up app that I heard on the Andrew Huberman podcast. He spoke for 4 hours and just gave me an enlightened sense of where I really wanted to start moving towards. So we can get into all of this over the next 45 minutes, but please, so grateful that you can join us today. Please introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. Once I found out what you're doing, what you're up to, I was like, wow, that's such a noble thing to take up this responsibility. So I was happy to come on. And yeah, my name is Manvir. I'm a meditation coach. I love diving into people's mess. That's one of my key interests. And that kind of started by through my childhood growing up. I had a close family member who was going through some mental health problems and issues. And I had a medieval mindset around my mental health back then, where it's like, okay, once you got it, you got it. You can't do much about it, or it's genetic. It might be passed on that way. However, I eventually came across the term neuroplasticity, which was like, oh, I can change who I am if I'm shy. I think the thing that I enjoyed most was like at that time was like, oh, I was shy. I'm like, oh, I could probably get a girlfriend. I can change the shyness. I can be confident. And around the same time is when I came across the power of now as well. And those two things kind of planted some very important seeds. And so eventually, through my personal development, I started meditating back then, and I came across trauma healing, shadow work. That was where the biggest impact I found was. And even before that, like I remember a lot of the times I used to be on Google, like finding out like how do I feel feelings? Because at the time I was just so numb. I just thought I didn't even have feelings at one point because I'm like I don't know what I'm feeling. And so then came emotional healing, trauma work, shadow work. Later on, I finished my degree, which was in software engineering. And I already knew that, okay, I didn't want to, this wasn't a end goal for me. But at the time I was studying holistic health because that's what was inspiring me also. So I had these three things running. And then came a day where, again, I had like a bit of a midlife crisis, an early midlife crisis, where I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? Because now even holistic health isn't driving me, inspiring me. And so I did a meditation. I was like, okay, let me ask in meditation, what should I do? What should I do? And for the first time, I had this like clear voice, which I don't know where it came from. It didn't sound like my own thoughts. And the voice said, teach meditation. Still, I thought of myself as a beginner. I'm like, how am I going to teach? I'm pretty much a beginner myself. And then spontaneously later down the road, in like 2 or 3 months, that I came across my first teacher, and he wasn't actually teaching meditation at the time, but he was a master meditator himself. And so I got under his wing for a bit. And then later on, I finished my work with him and currently under the guidance of a new teacher, which initially I flourished in the realm of emotional healing, shadow work. And then I got to learn the deeper aspects of self-realization and enlightenment from my current teacher.
Wow. What a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing it and also for being here. Meditation, as I said to you, is a huge part of my life. And I can say for 45 years, it was not. For 45 years, I lived in here. I was a prisoner of self-will, of I can fix all my own problems, entitlement, resentment, fear, all locked up in here and not flowing. And what I've learned a lot about meditation is it's just this process of continual learning, like you say, to this kind of just thing of like becoming aware and conscious, to like unleashing unbelievable potential in what we can do. And but I really do like the fact that you kind of say it starts with healing. And I'm really interested in that, because I think all of us, like I've been to some really dark places, and a lot of people hear my story and they're like, Nick, wow, you've come so far since getting out of prison, and or detoxes or hospitals, because of what alcoholism did to me. And I think that, I've only just started healing, really, because the other day, as I just mentioned to you quickly, that I'm a new stepfather. And the other day, I've got a real bond with them, because they like ice hockey, and I was an ice hockey player. And I go across the road to the local gym, and we play indoor floor hockey. And the 10-year-old did something to me that triggered me, and I yelled at him, and I took my volume above what I suppose trying to teach somebody would be, and it was complete fear and trauma response, where I was just this. I just turned into a teenager again, and I yelled at him and made him upset. And I've been thinking about it now for the last, almost 24 hours, because that's what it has been. That, I'm trying to be this child's teacher, but I'm also learning, in the fact that I still have a lot of healing to do. And he had said something about dads, and yelling, and how his dad used to yell at him, and it brought out, well, my dad used to yell at me, you know. I've just been reflecting on it for the last few hours, Manvir, just how much more healing, even though I'm almost 7 years sober, and I help a lot of people, and I do stuff, I still have these deep traumas from childhood. So, but I suppose a lot of people, they come to meditation because they want to be enlightened. They want to unleash power and potential. But do you find that most people need to start with a healing journey first? Like you say, the shadow work and the trauma work?
1000%. This is actually one of the messages I want to get across in the field of enlightenment in general, because there's a lot of this stress on non-dual thinking, of being present, and the reason, and there's a lot of forcefulness of people trying to be present, trying to be neutral, and it's not actually meant to be forced. It's meant to come as a natural byproduct. The main reason we can't be present is because as soon as we're present, all that stuff that's stored in our body comes up. Mm-hmm. So that is like the first foundational piece, is to go through that healing journey and see what comes up, because it really is just triggers that are pulling us out of the present moment in the first place.
Yeah. What was your experience with The Power of Now, and what did that book mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I read it, it just went over my head. However, it just felt like there were seeds planted. So by the time it came around my second and third reading of it, I think the first thing I realized was this wasn't a book that you kind of read. It's more of a the whole book is like a meditation. Is that you read a line, it doesn't actually make any logical sense, but there's an abstract, deeper meaning to it. And once you just read it and soak yourself into it, it takes you to a more present, deeper space where it feels more at home. And you're like, oh, like this is how I can feel. This is what is natural, because I didn't do anything to get to this state. I just kind of slowed down, allowed the words to sink in, and I'm in this presence.
Yeah. For me, I mean, it is that word of the power of living in the moment. And for me, for so many years, I'll live in the resentment of and self-pity of the past, and the fear of the future. Neither one logically exists anymore, right? And why is it that I spend all of my day fearing financial security, fearing not being a good dad, fearing not being a good partner, fearing, all this stuff, when it takes me out of the present moment of when I sit there and I go, right here, right now, talk to Manvir, how beautiful life is. But it's not a natural thing to do for me, is to live in the present moment. And I'll give you a quick little reference about a book that I read in recovery. And they talk about the fourth dimension of existence being, once you go through certain steps, you get rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. And a lot of people were going, what's the fourth dimension of existence? And they're talking about it being some place with peace and ease and comfort, and they make it sound really cool. But it was Einstein, right, who said that the fourth dimension is time. And what they're trying to do is imply that being rocketed into this dimension is being rocketed into the here and now, being able to live in a present moment, like without the fear and resentment of the resentment and the self-pity of the past, without the fear of the moment. So, I mean, in terms of meditation, right, as being let's define what does meditation mean to you and in your teachings, and then how do we use it to get into the now? And I know that's the big question that everybody wants to know. But what is meditation to you, first of all? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's like, I know this is like the most common question I'll get, but every time I'm just like, okay. So for me, meditation, I would say, is a tool to develop your awareness. I think that's like the best abstract, all-encompassing way. But then how we specifically do it with specifically what meditation for specifically where you're at varies. And I feel like it's a tool that you can experience a higher consciousness, so then you can ground that into your present experience.
I love that. A lot of people will be sitting there who would be listening to this, and the word meditation or even mindfulness and enlightenment will sound woo-woo and a little bit kind of lefty. And these guys just hug trees and eat yogurt with granola and flip-flops. But it's got these kind of connotations as being that. But for me, if I just say that, meditation is about quiet contemplation, to listen and to be guided, it makes it very, very easy. And then a lot of people say, well, guided by what? So let's talk about the what. What is the force, the power, the spirit, the source? Is this what we're trying to tap into for guidance, or are we already a part of it?
The funny thing I found is that as I came closer and closer to enlightenment, one of the best ways that I could describe how my life plays out is like, for example, you have a rooster. His natural thing is to make noise 4 a.m. in the morning. So as you get closer and closer to enlightenment, which is just peeling away layers of ego and things that we've built from childhood, I'm like, just like the rooster's rooster, I be Manvir. I'm just Manvir. Like Manvir wakes up every morning, meditates, does a bit of work on his laptop, eats food, goes to sleep. And it's almost, in one sense, I'm not saying you become an animal, but it's almost that naturalness that kind of starts flowing. And why is that guided by? And this is one of those questions where it's like, when you taste the orange, I can describe it as best as I can, but only when you taste it, you know what it tastes like. Yeah. And one like kind of inquiry that I really enjoyed that I got from Rupert Spira is he was talking to everyone and he was like, okay, our world, our life, all it is pretty much is the memory of our five senses, in a sense that we've seen, heard, and thought things, we've seen, heard, we felt things, and we've kind of remembered these sense experiences. And over time, this sense experiences has created Manvir's life. So for a moment, let's pretend that we didn't have senses. We didn't have touch, sight, hearing. And for a second, pretend that you didn't even have the ability to listen to your own thoughts, to listen to what's going on inside. You can't see anything, you can't hear anything, can't even hear your own thoughts. And then see what's left. And obviously in more of a meditation, you take a bit more time into it. But what's left, you can kind of see that, this has been here the whole time. This has never gone. This was here. Was this here? I can ask you, was this here before I was born? Does it ever leave?
When did you first taste the orange?
Oof, I I would say I first tasted it maybe around 2018 was my first initial taste, and then it became more of a permanent thing in the last like 2 years.
Yeah. I I was getting into meditation, like I say, about 6.5 years ago. And I had a tribe come over to my office, and we were going to do a guided meditation, and from an indigenous woman in Canada. And she was going to do several guided meditations. She started off with a shorter one and then a little bit longer one. And I think they were going up in about increments about every 2 minutes, like a 3 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute kind of, not 3 minutes, but it made little jumps. And in the first one, they're in my office, and we're in the boardroom, and we sit and we light candles and get comfortable. And this woman speaks and guides us through a meditation. And I probably didn't hear a word she said, because all the time, Manvir, I was thinking about whether or not I left the lock on the office door open. So I was not present. And I remember saying, like, this is a person who's come and has given of her time for free to guide us through this meditation. And finally, I after that one, I said, excuse me, I'm just going to get up and I'm going to check the doors locked. And while I was checking the doors locked, Manvir, I was saying to whatever, God, the universe, I'm not a religious man, but the word God does creep into my life, but the universe, I was like, look, this is the first time I'm trying this. If this works, can you please just let me get it? Let me see something. And I sat in the next guided meditation, and she started to talk. And about 30 seconds in, Manvir, I started to feel this warm, just like a warm veil, felt velvety fall over my body. And I kind of tilted my head back with my eyes closed, and I just felt like warmth. And I saw a dark pool of water, almost like in the moonlight, but with a dark purple tinge to it. And from this water came a female hand, came up through the water. And I heard this like, you want to see something, buckle up. And it was almost like this hand came out and grabbed me like this. And I went out immediately through the Earth's atmosphere and into the stars. And I went on this journey through the stars, like ducking and diving in and out of stars and being guided by this hand all the time, and like just Superman, like all the way. And it just went on and on through stars and lights, and turned around and came back towards the Earth. And then the Earth was it was almost like it had scaffolding around it. And I went into the Earth, and then I went down into the land and into hay fields, up behind bumblebees, and into the fur of the bumblebees as we're flying along. And I just felt tears flowing down my cheeks, and this big smile. These tears were falling into my mouth. I was just in this gone. And I just remember starting to hear the person guiding the meditation. Her voice started to come through. And it was literally like, Nick, are you okay, Nick? I had gone for about 15 minutes, and they were all just sitting there watching me cry. It was the most amazing, beautiful experience where I tasted the orange. And I've just gone, there's something. I don't know how, I don't have the answers. I don't know what it is. I just know that through some kind of effort and action, I can experience being able to live in the now. So that was my story about tasting the orange, is that I have no idea how this works. I just trust that it does work.
Yes, exactly right. And you just reminded me of an experience, because obviously people can be skeptical if they haven't had an experience like
Yeah.
this. But I had a dream experience. Well, I had experience at night where I just myself kind of shot into space, and it would seem kind of random, but then I saw a specific planet and I received a specific word. I woke up the next day, Googled the word, and I saw the exact planet that I saw. And I'm like, I had no knowledge of existence of this planet. So So there's some truth to this. I don't know what it is, but this is evidence.
It is, there is. And like I said, I know people are going to listen to this, and unless you've ever really tasted the orange, then, you know, it's hard to kind of believe that. I kind of logically try to figure out, you know, the big question: why are we here? And it's people always can answer it in their own way, and it's tends to do with success around something that you can gauge in terms of financial or materialistic in some kind of way. And I was really caught up in that because it was like indoctrinated in me from a young age that success had to look a certain way. And, you know, we live in a world that's controlled by, you know, corporations and politicians. And, you know, the name of my company is Retribe because I'm really interested in how we have evolved as human beings, you know, for tens of thousands of years before there was Wall Street, you know, and all the big banks, there was humans evolving on this earth and having some purpose in their lives. And the relationship with the stars was very deep. The relationship with the earth and plants, I was plant medicines, but plant, but the earth, you know, things that people take to have spiritual experiences and enlightenment. And we've lost that today. And it's really hard to be able to say to people, you know, let's get outside of this zone of a silo of individualism and materialism to really, again, I keep saying this, but unleash our human potential and what we can do, which is, I do believe the secret of life is to help one another, you know, to be of service to our fellow human beings. And it's in meditation that I can be guided into how can I do that? Because I don't personally, and I know a lot of people do, will use meditation for, like you say, enlightenment and to kind of gain some elevation, I suppose, to the universe. Whereas I think guys like me, I'm designed to actually help my fellow man in terms of, especially those who are struggling with alcohol use, and to keep my gaze to my fellow man. And I get that meditation is, Nick, just look for people you can help, or not even look for people. Be aware of the people who are put in your path. So don't get into the, you know, because people will be put in your path and you'll be, oh, I've got to get my bank statements. I've got to land this client. I've got to do this.
Yeah.
And you're going to walk straight by the person on the street or the person in a meeting who's going, hey, buddy, you know what? Can we grab a coffee? I could do with a little bit of help. So I think that that's what I really love meditation for a tool, is that even even in trying it, it works, right? You just need the willingness to kind of set forth. And as we kind of go back to the idea of healing, I'm sorry to kind of bring this up, but I don't want to open up any old wounds, but where did you have to heal? You mentioned some childhood trauma. And how did that manifest in your body and the things that were blocking you to get to where you are now?
Yeah, I think the best way, actually this is probably the most recent thing I've dived into with myself. And I grew up with the golden child syndrome. Like I was the golden child of the family. And for someone who's not like my sibling, it may seem like, oh, how lucky is this guy? He's the golden child. Everyone loves this person. But in reality, it was almost like the trauma is different, but it's impacted the same. And so I had a lot of anxieties and pressure to be the golden child, to be the best, to live the life that I'm expected to live. And that has probably, and I'm bringing this now because this is like the most recent thing that's come up. Even to this day, I'm just like, wow, like there's parts of me that still compare myself to others. Even though I may have achieved great things, I can't see the success unless someone else comes and acknowledges it. And so these kind of things have really impacted me. And I mean, it's bad that it's a usual thing, but as per many have may have gone through some physical, you know, you could say abuse as a child, things of that nature. And because my mom had a lot of mental health issues, I was like it's like I took on that responsibility to comfort my mother, but as a child, you're not able to handle that level of emotion.
Mm.
And so that brought up a lot of codependency for example, with my mother, and a lot of this people pleaser side of me, and always wanting to take on other people's problems. And it's funny because in one way it's worked out because this brought me to this work, but then there was a limitation where it's like, okay, I need to learn boundaries now. I can't just keep taking on people's mess. There needs to be a fair exchange here and things of that nature.
Why did you take it on though? What were you? There's always something that I ask, when someone says I'm trying to please people, I'm trying to take on their pain or their suffering. What is it that you get from doing that?
Well, when I was diving into when my mom was going through certain episodes, a lot of the times as children, we're self-centric with the world. So when my mom was upset, I realized that I had developed the belief that it was my fault. And so there was guilt. And so seeing other people that may be suffering or maybe going through something, add on top, I was the golden child. So I saw my siblings not being treated as fairly as I was. I felt guilt for other people suffering.
Oh.
So and guilt is quite a strong emotion. So in terms of to cover that, that was like one of the underlying, you could even say, motivations for me to help others.
Oh, okay. And you talked about your mom and mental health, and I think about kind of some of the things that you said at the beginning too, of like, this is it. I've got some mental health problems, and that's what I've got. And I know that meditation isn't a cure for anything. It's a tool that we use to be guided. But I'm very again interested in the fact that there seems to be a lot of cases of people who just they're not fulfilling their purpose. They're kind of archetypal kind of purpose that we're born with certain skills and traits, and we get again kind of pigeonholed into you've got to do this and you've got to do that. And I think this creates a lot of dysregulation in our nervous system, and it creates a false sense of self, and it creates a lot of people call mental health challenges. So, with that, we can see a world that is in pain. A lot of people have pain because of, this lack of purpose, this lack of direction, this lack of connection. Do you suggest people use meditation as a tool? Again, we're going back to healing, aren't we? And yeah, can it work like that? Can it work as a healing mechanism, I suppose, with regards to, and we're not doctors here, folks. we're not, but with regards to things like a lack of direction or fear or anxiety, meditation tends to be a good tool to be able to ground us a little bit more. So how would you, and I know you talked about different types of meditation, so maybe we can get into that. Maybe we can get into the different types of meditation that are used for healing and the kind of the progression to the, like I say, kind of transcending to some spiritual universe enlightenment.
Yeah, the first thing I actually want to mention is that, because the purpose, I think we've all gone through it, like trying to find my purpose. But the thing is, at the beginning, it's like we're looking through like muddy glasses. We're trying to find our purpose, but there's these layers of mud that are covering our vision. And so we're trying to find what it is that we are, but we need to first take off the layers that we've put on, because who we are, we already are. The reason of the confusion is that we put on a bunch of things that we are not. And so with clarity, I usually say, the way meditation helps in a sense with clarity is that it's again like muddy, or like water that's like, if you've got a tub of water and you just swayed your hand in it, you can't see the bottom. So through meditation, you allow that water to settle, then you can see what the bottom is, and the clarity is already there. And so the process I usually take individuals through is that first we start off with meditations related to focus. Can't do anything until we can, at least we have a basic muscle of focus. Like until we can't just have a basic focus, we really can't do anything. Everything's too scattered.
Yeah.
And once we're there, I then move on to meditations that build our emotional capacity. So I see it as, for example, at the beginning, you may be able to handle only 5 kgs of worthless stress. So through these meditations, which they're not hard, in a sense, you're more accepting and letting go, but we're building the muscle of acceptance. So now you can handle 10 kgs worth of stress. So now imagine in your life, the highest amount of stress you experience is like 7 kgs, but now you've got the muscle to handle 10 kgs of stress, or the acceptance to handle 10 kgs of stress, then automatically your life becomes much easier. And once we've developed a certain emotional capacity and strength of acceptance, then I would take someone deeper into the shadow work or the trauma healing, where we go back to some of these events. But when I did that, I just went straight into that path. But I see it's much more efficient and much more better for someone to have the confidence that they can handle intense emotions and then go to the trauma healing. Yeah. And, you know, just to kind of, I guess, wipe out the mystery around it, all you're really doing with the trauma healing meditations is you're kind of teaching your nervous system that you're okay with this trigger, that this emotion, that you're okay with it, that you can relax with it. Because how trauma works is that oftentimes as a kid, say this is probably like we have like a certain limit to what emotion, the intensity of an emotion we can experience. Like we can experience like 10 points of anxiety. But what happens in a traumatic experience, you end up experiencing 15 points of anxiety. And that's where trauma is created. Your body can't handle it, so it locks and freezes, and that trauma gets stored in your body. And so by increasing your emotional capacity and the ability of acceptance, we manage to release that energy that's been stuck there.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you if you could do something. I don't know. You can say no. It's not a big deal. But could you lead a little meditation? Could you do?
I was literally going to suggest it myself. I was thinking that before we had even. Yeah, we can start off. Yeah.
What and again, do it as you feel called to. But my asking is for guidance around snap reactions. So a reaction from trauma, don't do that. Like to say to the little ones, don't talk like that, don't yell like that, don't do, which is coming from my trauma, rather than sitting and kind of being an observer, or taking a step back and saying, hey, Nick, just observe this and learn from it. Don't react. So more going from react to respond. So that's you don't have to do that. We can talk offline about that. I'm just saying that's my kind of what I'm asking the universe for help with, is please help me not to react, help me to respond.
Yeah, okay. So again, we can talk off more for that one.
I'll
give one that will help in a sense. And it was more suited for, like, because obviously I have to take a responsibility of who's listening to it. So I'll give them a general one.
How long will this last? And are you going to guide through are you going to talk through the whole one? Oh, can I close? Like, you guide me.
Yeah, you can. Is there a time limit you want me to put, just so I can keep a?
Let's say 5-6 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so we can begin just by closing our eyes and following our breath. And when it comes to the emotional healing types of meditation, I often like to go in the nose and out the mouth. A more grounded breath. So just giving a few moments just to follow your breath. To feel more space around your breath. And just allowing everything to slow down naturally. Allowing your thoughts to slow down. Allowing any sensations in your body to slow down. And allowing your breath to slow down also. And we can take a moment just to remember a specific emotion that we want to deal with. We can remember a specific event that triggered a specific emotion. And just take a moment to notice where it may first occur in the body. It may have a certain texture, a certain feeling to it. Just taking a moment just to familiarize with it. And what we can do now is we can see this feeling as a heavy cloud, a dense cloud, might be full of rain. Just taking a few moments to see this emotion as this heavy cloud. Don't need to fight it. Just see this emotion as this cloud for now. And what I want you to notice is that this heavy cloud, this dense cloud, exists in this big blue sky, which is you. You are this big blue sky, and within it, there's this dense cloud. And there's nothing wrong with the cloud. We're not trying to do anything with it. But we can acknowledge that there's space behind this cloud or emotion and around this cloud and emotion. And we can breathe into the space behind and around this cloud and emotion, inviting more space, more softness. And if your mind gets entangled into the cloud or the emotion, you can just remember again, you're this space, you're the big blue sky, clear sky around it. And the sky can be as big as you want, as big as it needs to be, so that there's room for this emotion, this cloud to exist without you having to be entangled in it. The emotion exists, the emotion is present, but you're not the emotion. You're the sky, you're the space in which the emotion exists. And as you bring this softness and this breath behind and around, you may even notice the clouds starting to spread out, starting to become lighter. And as it spreads out, you can even increase the size of the sky. And you can stay here for as long as you want. But when you feel ready, you can slowly start coming back from meditation. Muted.
Just as I was closing, the sun came. You saw the sun come.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's just another indicator that if we just, it's not like we're trying to do anything crazy. It's just trying to be a little bit crazy. I shouldn't use that word, radical or hard. It's just making a beginning and just trying to get a little bit more connectedness with ourselves. So thank you so much for that. It was beautiful. And I hope everybody, if you did join in, that you enjoyed it as much as I did. And the sun shone on you a little bit, and that cloud it just became a little bit lighter, because it certainly did with me. Manvir, thank you so much. I'm interested to know now, kind of over the last couple of minutes that we have, what are your intentions set for 2023, and what aims and goals do you have for yourself and for your practice?
Yeah, personally right now it's just assist as many people as possible. Like you mentioned before, it's like people kind of come across your way. So in terms of my marketing has changed, because I'm not forcefully looking for people, but I'm trying to be more open for that. But that is the main thing, is just increase the volume. I've been training pretty hard because I have high expectations for myself as a teacher, so that I can handle the capacity of as many people as possible. And like last year and coming to the end of last year, I really have reached certain personal goals, which increases my capacity to assist as many people as possible. So that's what my goal is.
That's beautiful. I'd like to offer for you to come back, and I think what we'll do is we'll put to the community maybe some of the things that they're challenges and struggles into the community, and see whether or not we can do a meditation with you. Let's make a regular thing out of it. And yeah, I'm just so happy that we've met. My heart is very full right now. I feel a lot of joy. You're a great young man. I'm glad you've come into my life. So thank you.
And likewise, Nick, like, let me tell you, it's very refreshing to see a face like yours. Immediately from speaking and just on my engagement, I could feel the authenticity, that I could feel the pure heart. And I really cherish those connections with those I find like yourself. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And just on a nice calm note, folks, don't forget you can join us next week. I think we're coming to you again on next Wednesday with Tony Hayes, who's a business coach, who's going to be joining us. So make sure you tune in then. And thank you for everyone for joining us. And again, Manvir, thank you. And let's keep in touch. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, but don't go anywhere.
Sweet.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.